Hello and welcome for another lovely talk on the Pain Free podcast, Positive Future for Health. And today we have Fiona Winter, really lovely lady, very special. And I'm really excited for her to be here with us today to share her wisdom and knowledge about energy moves. What's all that about? To be letting you know all about that. We met very recently at Camp Out, which was Pete Lawrence's amazing event just recently. All natural health kind of things, a positive future, all what I'm about, and I hope that you are too. A positive future for what we want. And yeah, I thought I have to have her on the podcast. So here she is. I'm very grateful that she said yes to me, to us. And Fiona, can you just say a little bit about yourself before you go into your talk about energy moves? Would that be okay?
Yes, I can. I work with people of all ages and all abilities, and I work with them doing movement. And I can tell you a little bit more about that, but I've actually been in this profession in some way or another for 40 plus years.
Been a while, yeah. And how did you get into it, or what is energy moves, and how did you get into what drew you? Because we had a little chat at Camp Out, wasn't it? Can you share a little about your life story? Well, how did you get here?
I can. It's actually in my presentation. But
Okay,
yes, I've
okay,
gone through a few iterations. I've always been interested in moving, whether that's dance or fitness. And I've always been curious about people who don't, people who can't, people who've never had the opportunity. So that's always been my focus, is how can I share what I feel about movement with people who just haven't experienced it, didn't think it was for them, had a bad experience. So that's been my life's work, has been developing that, as well as being sort of training other teachers and doing all sorts of facilitation. So
amazing. And when we were talking at Camp Out, you're a dancer like me, and I love dancing, but you're a professional dancer, and so you said that that was your love, and that dancing and movement was your love, but your body wasn't big enough for the traditional height of a typical dancer, and so you couldn't get the jobs that you wanted. So what
that's
happened?
right.
Is
Well,
this on? I don't want to interrupt your screen's slides screen. Would that be? Can I ask you now that, or does that mess
yeah, no,
up your?
I can answer that now. Yeah, I'm 4 foot
What
10,
happened?
which is well below the average height. I think 5'4", 5'5" is the average height for a woman in England and Wales. I live in Wales. So at 4 foot 10, I always had to have more strings to my bow. So I did act as well. But it really made it a struggle to even apply for any jobs. And I was in between work 1 year. I'd just finished working in pantomime. You're all supposed to say, oh, no, you weren't at this point.
Oh no, you weren't.
I was playing Principal Boy in a pantomime, so I sort of moved on to other roles. And I was also working with the Welsh National Opera, not singing, dancing for them. And I had a gap, and it was 1982 when, if you remember that, Jane Fonda came out with her big aerobics boom. The Jane Fonda, somebody's nodding. I can
Do.
see Penny nodding. She might remember it. Leg warmers and and
Penny is a dance. Penny is a dancer too. She's a natural
okay.
mover.
So
Yeah.
immediately I saw that, I thought, oh, that's okay for those people who can do those movements. But what about the people who can't? Because even as a dancer, I was not somebody who naturally had what we call a turnout, where you rotate from the hips. I wasn't naturally flexible. So I'd already worked on myself to build that, but I knew most people were nowhere near that. And so I went into the fitness industry immediately curious about how I could get people safely and comfortably into enjoying movement.
Mm.
And I did a few little bits of theatre work after that, but basically my life evolved into teaching, whether it was teaching dance or fitness, and then into teacher training. Yeah, and then I've kind of moved outside of those core modalities of a dance class or a fitness class, and I've moved into embodiment and somatics, which may or may not be words you know of, but I will explain them later.
Wonderful. And I'll ask at the end, who you're teaching now, and or if you want to mention now, or and this is what I really picked up on you, that you had that spark of something really special that you see people exactly where they're at. I mean, I've been a dancer all my life as well as a hobby, and many times I went to classes and I felt completely useless because I went into the wrong class. I went into a ballet class one day, and you may or may not know what's the ballet class, but it's pretty full on, and you have to be able to stretch everything in every direction. And I was an aerobics fanatic at the time, and I really loved. I really saw that spark in you that you see where people are at and you take them from that point. And that's why another reason I was really interested in to bring you on here because most people who follow me, they come through the pain-free method and they're in some sort of physical problem, distress, or symptom. And some people can't move at all. And that really appealed to me that you just had that magic sort of nuance that you see people exactly where they are and you bring them from that point.
Yeah,
And
thank you for
that
seeing
was
that. I think
yeah, that
I
was
think it's my curiosity that helps me with that. That, oh, okay, that's not possible, but my I have a positive outlook says, well, what is possible? What's
mm,
possible
love it.
now? What's possible today? Might not be possible next week. It might not have been possible last week, but where are we in the moment? And then, I'm sure Penny will understand that if you say to a dancer, cha cha cha, we have a sense of what that is in the body. And I have a sense of it because I, learned from 3 years old, but not everybody does. So the teacher in me would be like, so what's a cha cha cha? Oh, it's a one and two. Oh, but if you don't do music, that doesn't make any sense. But actually, most people could clap. And if you're clapping it, you can probably do it with your feet. And you're actually doing a cha cha cha. So I brought that curiosity and that how can we break it down to something that's really accessible. And I thought, well, actually, if you're just doing that on the floor to a piece of music that is a cha cha cha, you might feel exactly the same joy as a professional Latin dancer doing that full on because they're still doing the same movement. They're still getting the same rhythm. They're still getting the same sense in the body.
Same music,
So,
same
yeah,
sound, same rhythm.
yeah. So, but it's like, what's the simplest thing to do? And for most people, it's clap. For some people, it's stamp their feet. So it might be one or the other, but then one might support the other. So, yeah, I've always used music to help connect to the body with a rhythm. And I've always used music to help connect with emotion. Like I'm sure everybody on the screen or everybody watching the recording can think of a song that if they play it, it makes them feel, maybe it makes you feel up, or maybe you can think of a song that would bring you into a different emotion. But most people will have knowledge of music that shifts their mood or alters their mood in some way. So in my teaching, I would explore and find those pieces of music that for the majority of people would lift the spirits or connect them to a certain type of movement,
Amazing.
quality of movement. So yeah, music's been absolutely integral in what I do.
And that's your expertise. And what were you doing in Campat? You were taking people. I unfortunately couldn't join your class. I was so gutted that I couldn't, and I was booked up myself. And but you were walking along past me, along into the greenery of the place, and everybody had earphones on. What was all that about?
So I call it Move in Nature, and it really came out of COVID. Most things we had to be 2 meters apart, but for dance, you had to be 3 meters apart. And that really, I really couldn't go into a community space very easily, even when they were open and do that. So I came online and then I started to see other teachers using these, what they call silent disco headsets, so like a personalized set of headphones where you can hear the instructor and the music. And I would look at them in a field on a football pitch and think, well, that's great, we're outdoors, but I live in Wales. There's always a hill we can go on, there's always a view.
Yeah.
And so I had this idea of like, what if every time or every 2 or 3 songs we turned around and there was a different view? What if we walked to the beat to a different place? And I literally rang up my arts development team with the local council on the day that they had been asked to get everyone outside. And I had a project ready to go, which they supported
Fantastic.
me with.
About time.
Yeah.
Divine timing.
So that was over 3 years ago. At times we had a lot of funding, post-COVID funding, Arts Council funding. So for a year, I did this every week, took people outside. And to the side of that, I also thought,
Amazing.
oh, what if we go at night with torches? People don't go out into their parks at night, but we could. So I think it was probably Halloween when I first took people out. And that's, yeah, just nearly 3 years ago. So every full moon, which there is one tomorrow, it's a super moon. So it will look bigger and brighter than the moon normally does because it's just that little bit closer to us.
Is this a call to dance, Fiona?
Yeah, I'm going out tonight, 8:30 to 9:30. I'll be on a hill. We'll start in dusk. It'll be dark by the time we've finished. And it's a point every 4 weeks. So, if you put in your diary 4 weeks ahead, you could look back and think, what was I doing 4 weeks ago? Oh, I came to Fiona's talk, and what's happened in those 4 weeks? How have I been? But you could also look ahead to the next 4 weeks and think, am I making decisions about how I want to be, what I want to do in the next 4 weeks? So when people come to my full moon dance, that's an opportunity to reflect on what's been, maybe to let go of that if needed, and also to project, to cast forward as to where am I going, what's my focus, and we're also in that moment in time, how am I right now? So
Love it. Love
people
it.
in my
It's
valley will see lots of blue lights on a hill tonight. Yeah, so that's also what I do, and I've got some pictures of that to show
lovely.
you as well in my slideshow, so you can have.
Beautiful. Would now be a good time to start the slideshow? Is there
Yeah, I
something you
think
want to ask?
so. I'd sort of planned to go through that. There's an opportunity to either watch me do some movement or even better, join in with me. I'm going to do it seated, and you have the opportunity to do it seated or standing. We might just have to adjust volume if
Amazing.
I'm using a different audio setting than I expected to use, but we'll work with that. And then I thought there's plenty
Wonderful.
of time for question and answer. So are you going to say,
Fantastic.
share?
Yep. So, yeah, I think you have co-host
Okay.
ability already. So if you want to go ahead and share, then we'll all see the slideshow. I'm going to go on mute, so I don't want to interrupt your slideshow. How long is the slideshow?
Well, it's me discussing it, so it can be longer or shorter. I'm keeping my eye on the time. We'll make it
Okay.
shorter.
Okay. I'll
Okay,
leave you
so
to it.
can you now see my slideshow? Can you see my slideshow?
Yep, absolutely. Perfectly.
Brilliant, brilliant.
I'm going to go on mute so I don't interrupt you.
Okay. So yes, energy moves. It seemed the perfect title for my business. We all have energy within our body, whether we want to think of that as our breath, our heartbeat, our chi, our prana, whatever name you give to it, we have an energy that moves through our body. And I like the play on words that moves is in there. And if you want to hear more about me, I'm fionawinter.com. So, and perhaps that will be shared with you afterwards. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am, what I do, and why it should be me offering you my ideas. So this is me at age 10. I think you can see that I'm in my happy place, doing a Charleston. I probably wasn't with the other girls because I was, several inches shorter, so I didn't look so good in a lineup. But I was quite happy to be there in the centre. And then this is me teaching in my early 20s. You can probably see I'm seated. And I taught a class called 50 Plus, and I made everybody sit down because I had absolutely no understanding of what being 50 plus meant. I'm now 60 plus. I know a lot more. But again, you can see that I'm having fun. And my tagline at the time was Fitness with Fiona the Fun Way. And I think that's always stayed with me. So I'm about getting people to move more, find the enjoyment in that movement, and doing it their way. So that's me doing it my way with slightly different hair. It's about connecting to yourself through movement, through your body. So I use the word embodiment later, and embodiment just means how you do you in your body. You know, you might think of somebody who, if they walked in the door, they immediately tell you a lot about themselves by the way they carry themselves through the door. And that could be in all sorts of different ways, or you might be able to tell their mood. So embodiment is about how do we do ourselves in our body that others can see. And this is me. I think I just opened, this is a studio that I have in my garden, and I was definitely in my happy place there. So I'm just going to show you some of the pictures of groups I've worked with. So I've been teaching for 42 years. I've trained other teachers. I do workshops. I also do coaching one-to-one and groups. I work a lot with people who are carers and the people they care for. So this particular group was all people who were caring for somebody with Alzheimer's. So this was their time. And I would also work with the people that they were caring for. I think you can pretty much see there's plenty of joy and fun going on there. This is a group of ladies who'd never ever danced in front of people before, and we had the opportunity to do a song. It was one of the Bond theme tunes, so that's why we're all kind of doing this and have lots of sparkle. And I think you can just see the absolute joy on their faces. And I don't necessarily expect people to remember what we're doing, so I would have worn my head mic and I would have guided them through, because it wasn't about coming up with some perfect performance. It was about sharing how we enjoyed ourselves, and it didn't have to be perfect. So that's very much what I'm about as well. It's like, you know, you might be doing it your way, it might not be my way. We're in two different bodies, but have fun doing it. And this actually, I wanted to put this picture in because this is the person who taught me to dance from age 3 to 17. This is Jean. She's 84 now. This was taken maybe only 3 years ago, and she still teaches tap dancing. And in there, she was actually doing types of movements she'd never done before. She came to the opening of my studio. So I owe a lot to Jean, so I like to stick her in there. This is me on a hill. I'll be in this place tonight. You can see me wearing the headset. And here's a few pictures of some of the people that I take out. So we're connecting to nature. We're not just dancing. We're not ignoring where we are. If we went there every week, we saw lots of changes. We'll see changes tonight from last month. We have this amazing sculpture in the park, which is a sculpture of a pit pony. We're actually walking up. That's it's the circle to the left of where I am at the top is its eye, and the structure is its ear. And that's what it looks like. Picture taken from a drone. So we actually dance in different places on this horse. It's so big. I can have a circle of 20 on its rump or its belly or on the neck. It's quite an amazing structure. It's the biggest earth sculpture in Europe. And tonight we'll be going up to this dome. I always think it looks like aliens should be landing here. And we'll light it up with our torches and we'll dance around it and under it. And this is just another local park that we dance in. And sometimes we might be in an urban park. And we like to see differences in nature and the different seasons. So I very much link my playlist to what season of the year we are, how we might be feeling. So in winter, we might be more resting. In spring, we're kind of like getting ready to go, waking up. In summer, there's more of a playfulness. And in autumn, we're just starting to release a little bit. So those are some pictures. So the things I said we'd mention today is how can bringing attention to what we sense help us move more and honor how our body is in that moment. So my first key is get curious, play and explore, because I have no idea how your body feels right now. It might be in pain. It might not have had enough sleep. It might be hungry. You might be apprehensive. So when we bring attention to that, the body will make a shift. Like, for instance, if we're a little bit tense, a little bit anxious, I would imagine that all of us, watching this on the recording or live, would know, where do we feel that in our body? Sometimes it's in the gut, sometimes it's in the chest, often in the neck. So there are key places that generally people will feel it. And you might be unique and feel it in your little finger, I don't know. But by coming into our body and ignoring what's going on in our head, it gives us a chance to notice what's in our body. And it might be that it's like, oh, actually, I'm way more tired. 3 minutes into moving with me, you might think I'm a lot more tired than I thought I was. So then you have that opportunity through awareness. We can accept, yeah, that's where I am today. But then we have a choice. So we might bring the intensity of what we're doing down. We might decide not to go for a walk. We might decide this is the day to take something out of the freezer to eat and not cook from scratch. So we become aware. We accept that that's how it is. And that can be quite difficult sometimes. It might be, I wish I had more energy. I wish I wasn't feeling like this in my body, but that's how it is. And then what choice am I going to make to honor what's happening in my body in that moment? When I say move more, I often think of someone who came to class and said to me, Fiona, I'm really willing to move, but I can't move my head. It's painful. So I said, right, don't move your head. Simple. We've got hands, we've got arms, we've got legs, we've got feet, we've got torso, probably from the chest down. Don't move your head. Great. She was really happy. And this was a class where we started seating, and then those who wanted to stand stood. So we did a movement that I'll probably do with you, where we're letting our hand float, floaty music, and then I'll invite the eyes to follow. And if the head wants to follow, let the head follow. So you can see now I'm moving my head, not full range. It's also quite slow, but my head is moving. And in fact, I just noticed that I started to rotate my spine. So when I looked at this participant, I could see that she was doing this almost exactly as I was. And at the end of the class, I said, do you realize you moved your head? She said, oh, was I? So I explained the movement we'd done. And she was like, oh, yes, maybe I was. And what it brought to me in that moment was there was a lot of fear, quite rightly in pain, that she might get if she moved her head. So there were two things I thought, well, maybe she's been moving it very sharp to the end of the range of movement. And so when she gets to the end of the range of movement, there's pain, or maybe it's so quickly that her system hasn't, it's like, oh, what's that? What's happening? So when our nerves and our muscles are suddenly taken somewhere, they often contract. It's like, whoa, I'm going to protect. Whereas if we go slowly into something, we can ease the muscle and the nerve endings and the tendons and the ligaments, we can ease them out. But I also thought, actually, I don't think she's moving her head at all because of this possibility of pain. So she's actually got stiffness. If we don't move something, if I sit down and watch telly for 2 hours and don't move, I get up, my knees are a bit stiff because they've not been moving. So I thought, actually, some of what she might be feeling is stiffness through not moving rather than pain. So if we think of it as like a continuum, at this end, there might be full movement. Somewhere in here, there's stiffness because we're not moving. And as we go further up, we'll reach this point where actually that's painful. So I'm inviting people to move into the stiffness, into the, 8 was fine, but the 9th time I did that, my muscles started to feel tired. But I'm not asking people to go anywhere near their pain. And I'm also inviting people to notice that your body is different from my body. And we do that through bringing awareness. And this is just a very simple picture. I was working with this couple. The gentleman actually had Alzheimer's, and this was a group session that we did. And he was bringing focus to his hands. So I just wonder, without actually putting your hands together, in fact, without moving them, can you sense how warm or cold they are right now in this moment? And then if you bring them together, but don't actually touch, do you get more of a sense of how warm and cold they are? And then if you actually touch them, was your awareness right? Actually, I think mine are hotter than I thought they were. So simple things can bring our attention to the body. And then how can body awareness help change how we move and how we are in our body? So just invite you to notice where your feet are at the moment. They might be touching the floor. They might be tucked around the leg of your chair, which I don't recommend necessarily. It can pull on the knee joints. And already some of you might be going, oh, actually, I was a bit slumped and now I'm going to sit up a bit more. So by bringing awareness, we can also notice habits. So I used to have a friend who rang me for very long phone conversations, and I would tuck my mobile phone under my ear and I'd go about my tasks and then wonder why my neck was stiff. So that was a habit that I did. And then by bringing awareness to, okay, what's going on with my neck? I need to notice that. It's like, oh, it's whenever my friend rings and I do this. And you might have just noticed, and it's quite normal. I'm sat here, after a while, I'm going to sink down into my seat. So I'm just going to invite you to put a finger or thumb where you can feel a hip bone at the side. Now we'll have varying, if I stand up, I can show you, there'll be varying amounts of covering over our hip bones. Some of you might find them easily. Some of you might find there's a bit of a protective layer there, but you should be able to find that it's the highest bony bit on the side. And then see if you can feel where the lowest rib is. And again, I immediately lengthen my body, which gives all my organs more chance to move. And I'm feeling now this lower part. And then if I put a finger on the top of my hips and one on the bottom of my ribs, I've got a space and it's about that wide. But if I let my body sink, that gap becomes smaller. It's gone to about that. And I've just done that by bringing attention with my fingers. And I can play with sink down, slump. And if I sat there for so long, I probably wouldn't be thinking happy thoughts. That's kind of quite an inward feeling for me. But if I sit up and look out, that's a very, very different feeling. So one of the things I look at is how our posture, and I don't mean like chin up, head back, straight back. I'm not talking about that sort of posture, but how we stand, how we sit, links to our emotions and our thoughts, so that I know if I'm up and looking out, I'm going to feel more alive. So I'm going to invite you to do a little experiment with me. So I want you to think of something that might make you feel a little bit sad. And if it was a scale of 1 to 10, I'm talking about a 5. Don't think of the worst movie you've ever seen that always makes you cry. But I don't know, my sweet peas have just gone over and they're not going to flower anymore, and I'm a bit sad about that because I love my sweet peas. So think of something that makes you feel just a little bit low. I'm going to invite you to imagine you've got pockets if you haven't, and pop your hands where your pockets would be. And you can do this next time you go for a walk. And I invite you to drop your head and look down and be with that thought of whatever it is that certainly not a happy thought. And you might be thinking it, you might be seeing it, you might, if it's sweet peas, you might be smelling it, however you bring that to mind. And then I'm going to invite you to change the thought to someone or something that really makes you happy. Or it could be a picture of someone. It could be an object that you actually really love. And I want you to notice what's happening in your body. Is there anything, as I haven't asked you to move your body, but it might already be moving. And then I'm going to invite you to lift your chin up, take your hands away from the pockets or imaginary pockets, and think about that thing or that person. Now, it's a little bit harder to feel this when we're sitting, which is why I invite you to do it when you're walking. But I know when I work with groups, it's almost impossible for them to walk with the head down and the hands in the pockets when they're actually thinking about something that makes them smile. So there is a big correlation between our posture, our emotions, and our thoughts. Mm-hmm. But it can be quite tricky to change our emotions and our thoughts. But it's mechanical to change our posture. So even if our posture's somewhat fixed through pain or through injury, there will always be something we can do to open and soften here on the chest, around the heart, to give more space on the belly. So that was the finger on the hips and the finger on the ribs, which also gives our digestion more space, gives all our internal organs, it allows us more room to breathe. And our eye gaze, if we're out and up, it's a very different feeling than down and that feeling of in. So that will change how we are in our body, our embodiment. And then when somebody comes past you on the street and sees you up and out, they are going to notice that. That's different than you walking around with your hands in your pockets and your head down. So I just invite you to think about how that might be for you during your day. Could my posture make a difference to how I'm actually feeling right now? So this is the same lady. She's very much in her movement. You can see in her whole body that she's expressing something. She's saying something with her movement. And you will have your own response to what you're seeing. You might be curious. You might be, is she frightened? She's certainly serious. And now, where is she now? So she's changed from very upright to forward. Her arms are much closer, and now she's open and smiling. She's actually looking down. Maybe she's looking down at a child or an animal, a dog, a cat, whatever. But if we encountered her in the street, we'd have a very different response to this. So our bodies tell a story. They tell a story internally, and they tell a story to everyone else who sees us. How can moving our own way create ownership and body autonomy? I think I've already said, my body moves differently from your body. And there is something about when we're being taught that often brings us back to school, where the teacher knew what they were saying, the teacher knew best, and we did what we were told. And Althea's done aerobics. I'm sure you can remember being in an aerobics or a dance class where we try our best to do whatever the teacher tells us. There's sometimes a feeling if we want to please the teacher, we want to show that we're listening, we want to show that we're doing the right thing. Oh, and I'm sorry if you can just see my printer printing. That's someone else in the house has just sent that to me. If it does more than one page, I'll turn it off. So yes, we can move in our way, and you have that permission. You have that permission in any class, whether the teacher tells you or not. But everything that in my class that we do is always an invitation, and it's about how are you right now, what's possible, give this a go, try this out. And I will generally start everything we do at, let's make it really simple, let's make it possible for everybody, and then you have a choice to actually do more. And the opposite is often the case in fitness, where it's let's do it the teacher's way, and then, oh, you people over there who can't do that, let's make it easy for you. That's not what I'm about at all. A lot of movement for some people can bring up ideas that it's boring, it's hard work, and it's pain. And I like to change those words. Boring becomes fun, work becomes play, and pain becomes feeling good or pleasure. Pleasure in moving and being in our own body. And the science backs it up. If we put activity, particularly with music, we get a change in the brain and in the mood. And when we lift our endorphins, they also have an effect on how we feel pain. So shall we try it? You can do it seated or standing, or you can do a bit of both. I'm going to show primarily seated, and you can make that choice. So I'm going to stop my sharing. And of course, you're very welcome to just watch. Take that out. I'm a bit nervous of pressing something here that will actually send me completely away. Let's just move that there. There we go. I'm going to stop my share. So you'll see that I've got a chair set up behind me. When I'm teaching a seated class, I'm usually using quite a low seat, basically because I'm short and I need to get my feet really, really firmly on the floor. So I'm just going to press the button on my printer. So there we go. That's off, and that won't interrupt us. Okay. And Althea, can you still hear me from this distance?
Yep, that's absolutely fine.
Yes. I'm just going to put a few more lights on. And there we go. So you might not hear my music as clearly as I would have liked, but you will hear it. Maybe we'll do about 10 minutes maximum. So I'm going to start seated. So if you're sat down, if you're in a sort of office chair with wheels, it might be better to be in a different chair, or be very, very careful. And Althea, can just ask, is that volume of the music too loud?
I think that's fine.
That's great. You can always just kind of do that if you need my sound lower down. So however you're sitting, wherever you're sitting, notice your feet on the floor. Have a little wriggle of your bum in the chair. Maybe go back to that finger on hip and ribs, so you're as upright as you can. And then just let the hands dangle. So imagine you've washed your hands and you're letting them dry naturally. Give them a little bit of a shake out, and maybe even letting your back have a little wriggle. And you might just want to notice your breath. So what I noticed was I wanted to give a bigger breath, a kind of almost like a deep breathe in and a out. And then I'm going to invite you to rest one hand and start to move the other hand in the space and follow. And while you're doing that, listening to that shoulder joint. So you may have one shoulder that moves more than the other. So we might be high or low. We might be taking it across or behind. And let's swap and do the other one. So we start off slower. And you might be starting off quite small. And perhaps feeling maybe you could go bigger as we do a little bit more. How about both hands together? But I'm going to invite you to take them to different places. So all the time listening to our shoulder joints, our neck. We're going to bring that into a movement of drawing in. And you can probably see my upper body starting to shift and move across. Almost like I'm gathering in. Somebody is offering me something and I'm receiving. So naturally my feet are doing a little heel lift and placing down. And you might be able to hear that drum, dum dum, dum dum, up down, up down. And I'm going to do it with my hands as well. So bringing attention to the beat, to the feet. And maybe we can do that as a push in front. Sometimes when we do feet and hands together, they don't always do what we're telling them to do. And it's fine to just do feet or just do hands. What if we did the hands only and we did them in lots of different places? Push, 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 push. Could you turn that into shake, shake? And now cupping the hands together, we're lifting up, sinking down and a little forward. In and up, down and forward. Sense your feet on the ground. They keep you firm in your seat. And notice if you can go a little bit further. Maybe a little further up, a little further down. Notice your breath. I noticed I wanted to take a sigh. And in a longer class, we'd spend more time connecting with breath. And we might do that before we start. And then let your hands dangle again. Okay. So I invite you to sit while I pause the music. We will do another track. And I invite you to notice what you notice. So there might be something happening in your breathing or your heart and lungs that might be different than before. You might be in your temperature. You might have noticed an area that feels a bit stiff or uncomfortable or possibly painful. And I invite you, if you felt something that was closer to pain, that you don't make the movements as big in that area, or there might be a specific angle that you might not want to move with. I know lots of people with shoulder problems can move certain places, but not others. Maybe there's a difference in, perhaps you were anxious before about what I was going to do, maybe you're feeling a bit more relaxed. It'll be different for everybody, but notice what you notice. So for a moment, I'm just going to DJ. Ooh. I'm just going to pause that. I started teaching when it was in the days where you brought a record player to class. It's a long time ago, and then it was tapes, and then it was CDs, and then it was iPods, and now it's phones. Okay, so I'm going to invite you to move your fingers, and maybe that reminds you of something sparkly. And I invite you to move the other one, and there might be a difference between the two. Both. Maybe you might imagine you're playing a harp, a piano, whatever. And then we're going to let the palms come up and down. With a breath out. In and out. And if you need to take longer, please do. Circling the wrists. Changing the direction. My fingers are still moving as I'm circling. And then let them hang and dangle. We're going to place them flat, circle round. So as we shift the weight forward, really press your feet firmly into the floor. And then circling back the other way. You might be feeling how your lower back moves here. Come back to center, sitting as tall as you can. We're going to let one arm come up, look back as it comes down. And this circle is only the size that feels comfortable for you. Let's do each one again. And this movement is like a paddle from side to side. So we're rotating the spine, looking at your hands. Bring your hands back to the middle. And imagine a string on the back of your wrist. Gently lifting them up. And then as if you're stroking something on the way down. Lifting up, maybe breathing in. Breathing out. And then just let your shoulders have a little roll around. Okay, and I'm just going to pause my music there. So have a little noticing moment again. How do you feel? Is it different than when we started doing the movements? And it will be individual to yourself. And you might want to share that in the chat. It might be something you want to keep very personally for yourself, or it might be something you want to voice. And it's okay to do it in the chat. And we did no more than 10 minutes there. So sometimes my seated classes, we might have a 40-minute class where we're perhaps moving for 30, checking in at the beginning, checking in at the end. So thank you. Somebody said my joints feel looser, more flexible than before. Yeah, thank you. I notice I feel more relaxed. Althea and I had a couple of technical problems beforehand, and yeah, my body's like, okay, this is nice. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying the music. So it's actually felt more relaxing for myself. So I'm going to open the floor to questions that anybody might have, and you can put them in the chat. I think it's okay, Althea, to unmute, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. If you just raise your hand and I can unmute you. I tell you what, if I just unmute everybody, and then it's going to be easier. Just step in.
Yeah, and I'm just going to put in the chat my email because one of the things I was telling Althea was I'm actually thinking of starting another online seated class. I have one for people with MS, but that's very particularly targeted to that condition. And I'm thinking of doing a more general seated class. So the seated classes I do deal with pain, anxiety, depression, people who just don't exercise for one reason or another. They haven't had an opportunity. They can't get out of the house. And always, although we did that sat down, as gradually people get to know how their body is, they might actually stand up and do those movements. So I might have some people who, for whatever reason, need to be seated throughout. Just had somebody with a broken leg who's attended one of my classes. She's had to sit down. Yeah.
So, yeah, and just to let Fiona and everyone know that I'm going to be sending out not only the recording, but how to get in contact with Fiona and all the links to your email and your classes and how to get in contact. So you'll have all of that.
So thank you. Somebody's just put in the chat that tension might be a result of emotional stress, things that are happening in life. And the body can get very used to that and it can think that that's normal. So something like this type of exercise, because we're noticing, we might notice the tension we don't normally notice. And then through movement, we can see, oh, did that movement take some of that tension away? Did that movement actually help the stiffness? Did it help the muscle tightness? So that's being in awareness of what our body's doing can then give us that choice. Oh, maybe you've spent the last month or so with your shoulders up around your ears and haven't even noticed. And then I'm shaking them out, inviting you to shake them out with me. And suddenly it's like, oh, that's different. And then when that posture is different, it can allow very often feelings and thoughts to flow. And the music can connect with that as well. So as well as bringing people into joyful state, I know it can also be a release. Sometimes it's a tear release. I'm sure some of you have all got a piece of music. You're like, I'm not playing that because I'll cry. But sometimes that's what our body wants to do. And it can be quite unexpected. I suspect tonight under a full moon, there'll be people who are having a bit of a tear on the mountain because they're thinking about things that are happening and they're letting go and they're moving. Yeah, and sound therapy as well. That's at a vibrational level, and so is the music that I choose. So I'm not choosing specific instruments, but I'm choosing a mood and a feeling and a sense of how that might be on the body. Yeah.
I'm loving this combination, Fiona, and it's really somatic, isn't it? I want to say so many things. I'm just loving what you're doing. And one of the core things is the posture, the body. is linked to emotion and thought. And I know as a dancer, I love to dance, and you have to don't worry about how you look. It's how you feel is so much more important. And
Yes,
you know,
when we're
I'm sure.
dancing for ourselves. I mean, as a professional dancer, I would have to dance out there as if I had no care in the world. And I knew that wasn't how I wanted to teach people. I wanted to teach people to honor how they were feeling and let the dance
Wow.
be for them. And to feel all of that.
Mm.
So yes, and Althea mentioned the word somatic. Soma means whole body, whole being. So it's the body, it's the mind, it's the soul, it's everything. Um, Whereas an aerobics class can be, I'm just going to move my body to this beat and I'm actually going to think about my shopping list and I'm going to ignore that my knee feels some pain right now. So it's far from what I used to teach in that way, albeit I taught it safely.
Very, very different. Well done. And when we move, and because we're all, it's all connected. Your emotions, mind, and body all work as one. When you move, it releases the stuff, and I love what you're doing. You know, as you do these movements that are not thinking about anything, but then as you say, you notice things about yourself,
Mhm.
and it's not only releases tension, but it releases emotions and traumas even. You know, it releases
Or
feelings.
brings in new emotion. If I actually said to you, imagine you've got a cream cake on a plate and we're going to splat each other. I defy anyone in my class who's actually doing that not to have a smile on their face and imagine what fun they might have or who they might want to do that with. Or if we were flicking things at each other, or taking a finger and imagining the best ice cream, Italian ice cream. Let me see what my favorite, mango and coconut maybe, and imagining the taste of that. That will bring a different sense to the body through movement and imagination.
Amazing, Fiona. All parts connected and
All parts
beautifully
connected.
beautifully creative. What love it. And
And I do know as well, just to come in on what you were saying before about how we can forget other things, that is a muscle that we need to build. So I know that 5 minutes into class, somebody might well be thinking about their shopping list. And that one, and if that's you, then there's the awareness. Oh, I'm thinking about my shopping list. Acceptance, it happens. You haven't done it wrong. You've just been a human being. And then there's the choice. Okay, I'm going to come back. I'm going to notice my bottom on the chair, my feet on the floor, where my clothes are touching my body. So, like, I know this is different to this through my senses, and then come back into the body. And that might happen multiple times for people in a class. And you're working that muscle of awareness and building from where you are and building that skill.
Rose has
Yeah,
just
so
asked a question.
yeah, I'm noticing that. Yeah, somebody found themselves smiling and it lifted them up. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for giving me a go and trying that out and trusting me to lead you in that. Yeah, 10 minutes. That was 10 minutes. If anybody who's watching on the recording or live would like a recording of one of the classes I do with my MS class, that might give you a taste of what a whole class would be. Now, there are certain things in there that wouldn't work for some people, so we actually work with light hand weights for one track of music because those people need more upper body strength because they're using sticks, chairs, wheelchairs, etc. So I wouldn't put that into a normal seated class. So it might be something you might want to watch and not necessarily try everything. And when you look at them, most of them have been doing it for 3 years with me as well. So their brains are switched on. They have their bad days and their good days, but that wouldn't be necessarily how I'd work with a new group. It would work much more like I have done today. But if you want to have one of those recordings, I can send it to you, say for a week, and you can have a chance to look and you get a sense of me as a teacher as well and how I interact with my class.
I thought it was absolutely wonderful, Fiona. And does anybody want to? We have come to the end of the time now. So, as I said, everyone will get this recording and how to get in contact with Fiona. And Fiona, you're going to give me a link to that class people can see for a week.
Yes, people
And
need to email me and then I'll send you a recording. So kind of ask for it when you've got a week where you think you might get to see it sometime, and it will just be a link that takes you straight to the recording. And as I say, you just might want to watch it first. And it's all seated, and it will give you an idea of my teaching style, albeit perhaps you might think, crikey, they're pretty good. I have to tell them sometimes that they've moved on from 3 years ago. So
Wonderful.
yes, I'm actually considering doing an online seated class, which should probably be a 45-minute class. And similar to my MS, I'd probably do a block where people sign up for a block, and if they can't come live, they will get a recording during that block. That's how I work my other classes.
Sounds amazing. I want to come. And Larry says that he's says yes, please.
Yeah, Mary, you'll get
And
my email, and you can email me.
fantastic. So I'm going to bring the call to an end because I find it's been delightful to listen to you, Fiona, and people can get in touch with you to do the classes, and perhaps if they're in Wales to come to your classes in Wales up the hill, go up the hill. I'd like to do that, but I'm quite far from you.
A gentle incline.
It looks fantastic, and I'm really excited to join a class myself. So, Fiona, that was amazing, really delightful, and gave me energy as well, and lots of different sensations. Made me feel like I was a bit stiff and aching. So, I felt the energy, and I love dancing. I love the delight that was coming back into me. The reminder of this feels good. So I'm coming to your class.
Exactly.
So
Energy moves.
energy moves. Absolutely. So, Fiona, thank you so much. It's been amazing to hear and to listen, come into your world of movement and energy moves. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining this call. And yep, I will get the recording out today. So you'll have that and to be able to get into contact with Fiona straight away. Thank you so much. I will bring this call to a close now. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you so much, Fiona. Amazing.
Pleasure.
Bye.